The following episode might contain sensitive content that you might not be comfortable listening to. This will include topics such as self-harm, suicide, alcoholism. If any of these things or anything related might disturb you, please proceed with caution or click off the video now. If you had to pick out one quote-unquote flaw about yourself, what would it be and why? Hello, my name is Hazy. Who Killed Hazy? Welcome back to yet another episode of the Only Rainy Days podcast, where I am the solo host. And today, as you can tell from the title and as a direct answer to the question I asked, I want to talk about inconsistency. Because if there's any trait of mine that I would love to talk about and to point out about myself, it's the fact that I feel very inconsistent in all shapes and forms of life, as I guess not satirically, but in a more lighthearted sense about myself. I feel inconsistent when I play games. I feel very inconsistent, and there's a lot of proof to it. But in a more serious tone, I feel very inconsistent as a person, and I end up assigning words and traits to myself that I don't wholeheartedly believe are true, but I use it as a way to get my point across. I am inconsistent. I am very inconsistent. And the term that I usually use to just get that point across to people is that I usually say that I have a lot of personalities, a lot of different voices in my head, which are true, to be honest. I do have not a large array, but I do hear and think in a way that makes me believe that I just am different people, or a handful of people, and it's hard to explain, but the feeling more just comes from I think sporadically, and due to the sporadic nature of it and me just trying to ration out things, it feels like my thoughts take a form of different people speaking, whether it be rationally, irrationally, through the emotion of anger, sadness, one that thinks about how other people would feel. The list goes on, but that's about it. And because of these feelings and the way that my thoughts just conflict with each other, I end up what I feel like is very inconsistent. At times, I feel like I am very considerate and passionate about trying to appease and appeal to how others feel. At times, I'm not. And those are like, I guess, the two polar opposites, but that's just like the main focus of the statement, I guess. I experience severe mood swings, essentially. And the mood swings, I wish it was, at the very least, if I could limit how I feel at times. But it's more than just a day by day thing. It's not like one day I'm happy, one day I'm not. It's more so it bounces by almost the minute, if not by the hour. I have gone through moments where I'll be happy and then it turns into sadness. Sadness turns into anger. The anger turns into more sadness. Sadness turns into me falling into a deeper depression than I am already. Day of recording is March 3rd. It's the morning of March 3rd. 2 days ago, March 1st, I recall an instance where I was cleaning my kitchen, and I have my headphones on. I'm just going about it as if I go any other day, and I was genuinely relaxed while I was doing it. It wasn't anything to be surprised about. I go in to clean the kitchen feeling fine, and then within a couple minutes of it, I just the mood switches. I'm just like, I'm not feeling well mentally, and music plays a part of it. The music that you listen to, the things that you take in, definitely play a part into your emotion. So I fed into it. I started listening to sadder music, and I just start to fall into a pit, essentially, while I'm listening to music and while I'm cleaning my kitchen. So I start to fall deeper and deeper into my depression. The thoughts start to get rampant, and all of a sudden, by the end of it, I'm on the verge of tears. I'm actually, if memory serves me right, by the time I finished cleaning my kitchen, I was in tears, and I started to cry a little bit. But I finished my job. Same effort, nothing changed, but I was just sad throughout it, and I started to cry. And just due to my nature, or whatever it might be, I have a not natural, but I just cry less now. I get angry at the fact that I'm crying, and then the tears just end there. I don't know why it happens that way, but it just does. So a couple tears fall out, and then it just ends there, and I'm sitting there wallowing in my sorrows. I'm just sad, and I'm angry about where I am in life, and then eventually it just turns into pure anger and a little bit of rage. And as a result, I opened a game, because that's what I was planning to do when I was done cleaning anyway. So I opened the game, and the moment I opened the game, the anger and the sadness went away. The tears in my eyes are still wet by the time that I open this game, but the moment I open it, it goes away, and I start to feel happy again. And I don't understand why. It's not even like the game that I didn't even get to play the game. I was just looking at it. Nothing changed to pull me out of my sadness, but all of a sudden I started to feel calm, and I started to just go through what I wanted to go through with, as if I wasn't feeling depressed and suicidal and angry and angsty and quite honestly scared about my future. It's like it never happened. And there's a lot of events and moments like that in my day-to-day life that occur, and it's inconsistent. It's inconsistent. It happens all the time. I could be sitting in a call talking to my friends. I'll just be talking to my friends. Everything's cool. I'm happy. And all of a sudden, my brain will just lock. My brain will lock itself. I'll get frozen in time. I'll stop listening to the conversation, which hurts in itself, because people will be talking to me, and I can't generate a proper response if I even make any noise or anything to acknowledge the fact that I was spoken to. It just gets cold. It gets cold. So my mind locks. I stop talking, and immediately I get sad. So even if I start speaking, it's clear, if you pay attention, essentially, that the mood has switched on me. I'm no longer cracking jokes. I'm no longer being someone that is essentially just being lighthearted. I'm not. It doesn't seem like I'm having fun with the scenario. It's more like I'm just talking to you as if I'm trying to escape what's in my mind. And at times, it's not like I even know what's going on in my mind. I can't. If I was to be prompted, I couldn't tell you like what's going on or anything like that. It's just, the brain just gives up, essentially, on trying to make sense of where I am or anything like that, and it just becomes sad and angry. And I'm gonna say that a lot because I'm a very angry person. If memory serves me correctly, from conversations I've had, I was told that I was recommended for anger management therapy when I was 2 years old, and the anger has not subsided. If anything, I've never been a hot-headed type of individual growing up, but I have been someone to just hold in the anger. I get angry, I project a different type of response, but the anger never goes anywhere. So as a result, I have a short fuse. I have a short fuse, but only in certain scenarios, if that makes sense. Or at the very least, the anger that I have never felt comfortable sharing with the world, because I recognize that it's not healthy, has went towards myself. So when I say I get angry, I do get angry, but it's not taken out on anyone. It's always at myself. So I have but I still have a negative self-perception that I am actively working to change. And it has changed. It has changed a lot, tremendously, over the last couple of years due to active effort. But it's still not perfect. And when I get into the state of being angry, it shows itself, and it's not healthy. It's not healthy, and the anger that I feel at times about whatever it might be, something that happened in my past, something I'm feeling now, or even just general fear for the future, it shows itself because I start to get angry with where I am now regardless. And the way that I end up talking to myself limits the way that I can talk to others. And that's assuming I'm with someone. If I'm not even with someone, then I just sit there stuck in a pit of what feels like infinite sadness. Essentially, I'm here, I'm alive, but I start to lose sight of why I'm alive and why that I'm happy that I'm still here in the first place. Everything gets foggy, it gets hazy, essentially. And funny thing about that, I'm going to take a quick tangent. That's where my name comes from, actually. Because when I started to realize that this was a personality trait, when I started to realize that I get so lost in my thoughts to the point where I can't think straight, I realized that it was a haze. It was a cloudy haze in my mind that I couldn't get stuck out of. So when I was in therapy, forcefully into therapy to get readmitted into my high school, the only thing that I could recognize when I was sitting in the room was my mind feels hazy. So if I could find the papers, I would have papers in therapy where I would write down the word hazy hundreds of times over and over again, because I just knew that I needed to get something out of my system, but I didn't know what it was. I could only write whatever came to mind, and it was just the word hazy. And that's honestly where my name comes from. But that just means that my name is forever grounded in the fact that I get angry. I get angry randomly without prompt, and the anger corrupts my happiness, and as a result, I feel relatively inconsistent as a person. But even before I had this recognition, before anything like that, I recognize now that I've always have been, okay, that's not fair to say to myself. Within recent years, I've been inconsistent. Growing up, I wasn't inconsistent. I stayed on top of every single thing that I used to stay on top of all the time. Grades, the small amount of social interactions I had, everything mattered to me, and I was able to hold on to it when I was younger. So growing up, I wasn't inconsistent, but when everything started to hit me like a ton of bricks, when my emotions finally caught up to me, everything that I suppressed when I was younger, everything that I started to yearn for that I didn't have when I was younger, when everything caught up to me, that's when I started to become an inconsistent person. That's when I feel like I started to let go on some of the social interactions, some of the social relationships that I had. That's when I started to let go on my strong belief that academics was essential to who I was and everything that I needed to succeed, essentially, because I used to be an academic. I studied religiously. I recall when I was in the 4th or 5th grade, I remember crying when I got a C on my report card. And even though I still brought it up to an A, I had a 4.0 GPA all the way up to 10th grade in high school. And that's exactly when I started to feel inconsistent. That's when the full weight really started to catch up to me, to the point where I just couldn't do anything. I couldn't keep up with the seemingly ever ramping landscape in front of me. Essentially, I started to let go of everything. Maybe it was due to the stress. Maybe it was due to the stress of the academics, because I changed schools. Maybe it was due to the stress of everything that was going on in my personal life catching up to me. Maybe it was the stress of everything that has happened when I was younger and I was finally old enough to understand it. Maybe the stress of that catching up to me just broke me at the moment. I'm not sure, but I can say that since that moment, I have not fully recovered as an individual, and it has infected itself into every single part of me. I'm still inconsistent when it comes to learning new topics. I'm inconsistent on even recalling previous topics that I've studied a lot, and I know where part of that comes from. Part of it was just learning things I didn't care for. The other part was my memory is legitimately fading out due to terrible decisions that I still make to this day. I make terrible decisions in indulging in substances and particular mental exercises that decrease the strength of my brain and my memory. I recognize it. I'm trying to make changes, but I'm not doing the best. I recognize it though, and that's the first step. But I'm inconsistent. I recall some things. I don't recall a lot of things. It changes. It's a day by day thing. In terms of my social life, and this is really where I recognize that I have changed. Growing up, when I was younger, I had a very small circle of friends, and I think I've talked about this before in a previous episode. I have one truly great friend that I met when I was very, very young. 3rd grade to be specific. I met him. Through him, I had a couple more friends. So growing up all the way up until I changed schools, sophomore year, 10th year in high school, it was just me in this group of about 5-6 people, which changed into 3-4 people when I got to high school, which turned into I only talked to that one core friend who I still talk to, and the only person from that friend group I talk to. We used to talk all the time. We talked every single day. When I moved schools and everything started to get harder and harder, we talked less and less. I moved schools. I did my best to try to progress socially, and I did. I made a lot of tremendous personal progress when I changed schools, And when I changed schools, I made about another 5-6 friends that I hold very core to me. And luckily, through a shift, those 5-6 people that I met and I really hold true to me since I went to that high school, they're still all my friends. We just don't talk too much. When I recognize it, and I'm not stressed about it. We're not in the same area. I don't have a reason to talk to them. And when I do talk to them, it's as if time has never passed. So I know the friendship is true. I could text one right now if I wanted to, and we could just start catching up and chopping shit as if there was never any period of time in which we didn't talk to each other. But even then, just the interactions I've had with them over the years, it's clear that I'm inconsistent. One of those guys is my roommate. I would talk to him, and sometimes I'm friendly, I'm nice, I'm caring, compassionate, I'm doing whatever I can to just help him out. If he just needs help with an essay, for God knows what reason I'm able to help him, I'm helping him. Do I need to help him? Do I need to look up a bunch of random sources on Wikipedia and just send it to him? Just give him starting ground. Do I need to retrieve something from him? Is he hungry and he just woke up in the middle of the night? Should I make him food? Go for it. Didn't matter. And other times I would just be cold and hostile, and I would be confrontational. I know that that's a problem with me. When I get angry, I get confrontational. So at times I would just get on his ass about things that didn't matter, things that I could handle, but I just wanted him to handle it, or whatever it is. And those type of scenarios exist with all the friends that I made. Hell, one of my really good friends who I haven't talked to in a while, and I'm sad about it. I'm sad I haven't talked to this one friend in a while, because he's just been a good friend always. I don't get to talk to him. I don't get to see him a lot, but I think the ball's still in my court. I think I haven't been the one to respond to his messages. Really great dude. Really great dude. He has never failed me when I really need to count on him. I recall we were friends for a year. Something came up about something trivial, something super stupid. Like, I think he wanted to borrow something off me to fix something. And because the product at the time cost a lot, I was just not willing to give it to anybody, because I was just afraid about losing it, because I needed it for a bunch of things. So I told him I didn't want to give it to him, and he got angry about it, and I pushed his buttons, and we fought, physically fought each other, and we didn't talk for a while, and eventually we reconciled and everything was cool. But I've been inconsistent with him. I failed to meet the mark on things he needed me for. I get cold with him. I get angry. I cold shoulder people a lot. That's a common theme with a lot of online friends. A lot of online friends that I still have to this day. Older than some of my high school friends. I have a group of friends and things that I know from just my time being online. And they know it best, quite honestly, that I experience a lot of moments, and I mean a lot of moments, of just acting quote unquote out of character. And the same things I mentioned, some days I'll be nice and considerate, and the other days I'm just a prick, I'm just an asshole, and I get angry, and any challenge means I'm going to tear you down personally, or I'm going to just leave. So some of my friends from my closest inner circles online, they've seen it. I will just get angry, I'll say the worst things, and then I'll just leave. And I will just take these long hiatuses from all my friends who I care for dearly. and I talk to all of them about anything that they're willing to talk to me about. So it feels bad to leave, but I'll just leave. I'll just leave without a quote unquote care in the world, because I get stuck in my ego. And I'm too focused on spending my time alone, whether I need it or not, than to be there for the people that want me or need me there. And the times that I have left for my own personal sakes, I make it clear. It's never been an issue to just tell people, hey, I'm going through something. I either don't need or don't want or don't know how to take in input and perspective from a third party. So I just need to go, and I'll let you know when I will return. And they accept that. And other times it will just be essentially, I throw the middle finger up. Fuck you, I'm leaving. I don't care about your existence. And I'll just go and leave people on read or delivered, and I won't say anything until I want to come back. And it's not necessarily that I need to leave, I just decide to leave. I'm very inconsistent with it. The worst case scenario in that perspective, though, I feel bad about leaving a lot of my online friends. A lot. I'm still their friend. I feel like I'm still trying, at the very least. I'll never know if I made up for it, because I struggle with taking in what people say. So even if they say they don't care and they don't mind and everything feels good, I'm always going to stress about it. But I think I've done well on trying to make up for the problems that I've created. But I do have one friend in specific. I met her through the most random means. She just contacted me out of the blue. I don't know, no mutual friends, anything. She just reached out to me, and we created a friendly relationship, and we just talked. And eventually it became clear that she was struggling with a lot of things. And I spent 2-3 years getting her on the right track, I dealt with everything. I would talk to her throughout her days. I talked to her from the moment she woke up to the moment she fell asleep. I even adjusted my sleep schedule to make sure I could help her, because she was dealing with a lot of depression, a lot of suicidal urges. And she would tell me frequently about all of her suicidal urges and moments of wanting to self-harm or moments of self-harm. Everything under the sun. And because of that, I held her close, and I did everything I could to help her through it. And eventually, God bless, I cannot explain the relief that I feel that now we're about 2-3 years into the future, she's no longer like that. Or I feel like everyone or a lot of people experience those type of feelings, or some feeling similar to it. She's medicated now, every now and then, and things like that. But I don't have to deal with the fact that she's trying to tell me her plans to kill herself every month, every week. I don't have to deal with the fact that I don't have enough information that if she was to actually try to go through with it, I don't know. I can't actually do anything. I can't contact her family. I can't call police. Like, she's happy. She's happy. She has her moments, and we all do, but she's happy, and she's moving through life. And knowing that now is a beautiful feeling. It's a feeling that I can only describe as one of the greatest moments that I've been able to feel in my life, knowing that she is happy. All of my greatest moments, quite honestly, are seeing some of my friends go from their absolute lowest to a point where they are content and happy with themselves. But I recall when I started to see that her emotions were on the up, and it didn't feel like, quote unquote, an obligation it felt like an obligation, but I was happy to do it regardless because she was my friend. She is my friend. I still consider her a friend regardless of anything. So I didn't mind making sure that I was there all the time, but the moment that the sense of urgency started to fade away a little bit, the grasp that was had on our relationship started to falter. Only on my end did it start to feel weaker and weaker, to the point where I recall sending her a message. I was just like, and this is one of the only times I've done it, I just told her, I was like, hey, I'm not really sure what's going on in my head, but I'm leaving. Essentially, I am just going. I'm cutting everyone off. I'm going, doing things on my own device, and I'm sorry, and I hope this doesn't really impact our relationship. Spoiler alert, it impacted our relationship. We're not even remotely close to where we were then as we are now. She's reached out to me a year and a half after that scenario. She actually reached out to me. It was around Christmas time, and we started to catch up a little bit, and that's how I know now that she's doing well. And that moment had damage because she doesn't understand why I did it, and it felt like a slap in her face. And that moment kind of opened it up to me that feeling might be something that all of my friends feel in terms of just dealing with me. They've all might have felt that slap in the face that she felt when I decided to just disappear into the wet works just because my mind told me to, which isn't an excuse, but I don't have a better explanation. It's not an excuse for my actions. I don't have an excuse, nor can I ever I don't want to excuse my actions, but I'd love to give a reason, because if I could tell them that it's for a mental health break, then that would be wonderful. But the fact that I continuously break off relationships because I just want to get away, it's as if my fear of attachment manifests itself all the time. So, and it's a strong enough feeling where I get afraid of feeling attached to friends. So if I feel like I'm relying on someone more than quote unquote usual, whatever it might be, whether it's just for relief through the day or anything like that, I'll just run for the hills, and I'll just try to get away from it. And I don't know why. I guess it's just trust and attachment issues, whatever it might be. I think those are the strongest leads I have for it. But I just run a lot. How it even broke the last relationship that I was in. I just ran away because I wanted to just move forward without anyone near me. But it's an inconsistent mindset, because despite not wanting anyone near me, especially when I progress, the only thing that I really yearn for, the only thing that I really want when things start getting hard, and when I start to try to make changes for myself or anything like that, all I wish for is companionship. All I look for are friends to be around me. All I look for is someone to tell me that they care. But when someone tells me that they care, I don't want to hear it, or I can't process it. If someone was to smother me with everything that I want to hear, I'll get angry, because it just feels worthless at times. And it's just like, why are you just going on saying it? And I do hold some personal truth to that statement, because I believe that the more you say something, the less value that it holds. But even then, I could be going through it and trying to hide it, going through it and not hiding it. Someone would tell me that they love me, they love me, they love me. They're happy that I'm here and thank you for everything that you've done. And it just makes me angry. But at the same time, if I didn't hear it, I'd feel more worthless than I already feel about myself now. But I don't know what to do with that type of feeling. What do I do if receiving what I've been looking for feels bad, but not receiving it feels bad as well? It feels like I'm trapped in a corner where I'll always just feel bad. I won't feel good. I can't trust the words that people say around me. I can't trust my own thoughts. What do you do when you're stuck in fear? But then I realized that when you're stuck in fear, one of the things, if not the only thing that you can do, is to challenge your mindset. So I have to challenge myself. Why do I not trust the things that people say? Why do I not trust the words that I hear coming from my own mind? Why any of this? Where does it come from? Does it come from previous experiences? Does it just come from the fear of the unknown? And that's hyperbolic. I think that's the word. I think that's a hyperbolic statement in itself, because I'm questioning fear in the sense of using fear, but I have to make reason of it. Where does it come from? And once I can figure out where it comes from, why, and I know my fear, especially in terms of relationships with other people, there's just a lack of trust. That's simply it. And the lack of trust comes from a good amount of events that I don't want to mention all of it, but essentially I have dealt with a lot of moments of seeing people come short on their promises or doing things that are they do actions that they know will harm me in their own self-interest, which isn't necessarily surprising to me, because I operate under the belief that everyone acts in their own self-interest. Everyone does, and it's not a surprise to see that someone would rather put someone else in a lower place to put themselves higher. But at the same time, some people will you have options. You have options in your life. And in these type of scenarios, if someone did nothing, then I benefit and nothing happens. And the benefit only comes from the lack of action. In reality, no one benefits, no one loses. You do nothing. People will do things that will quote unquote boost themselves, and they'll take the risk of knowing that only if I catch wind of it, then it will negatively affect me, so they'll do it. And that a good general example would be cheating. If you're in a relationship and someone decides to cheat, you're doing something that will quote unquote benefit you, and as long as I don't catch wind of it, then I'm at a neutral. And if I catch wind of it, then I'm at a negative. And they'll do these type of things and anything of it. And I have a deep fear of these type of things, because I have had to deal with it at so many times throughout my life, essentially. And I have done the same thing at times. I'm not going to paint myself as just a pure victim. I have done a lot of things that I would consider bad. So I'm a bad person. I'm inconsistent. I do good things to try to make up for the bad that I've have done, the bad that I feel like I've done, which is better than some people. But regardless, I always wish I didn't do the bad things. But to not sidetrack myself here, I have a severe trust issue. So it just leads me to be inconsistent because I don't want to be dependent on people, and I don't want people to be dependent on me. I don't want to be dependent on people because I enjoy control of my life. I don't want people to be dependent on me because I know at any given moment I can switch and I'll start to push. So I don't want to knowingly hurt someone due to problems that I am aware of. And because I know that I have this terrible habit of pushing people away and running away and even saying terrible things to people at times, I like to keep people at a distance, which in itself hurts anyway. But I want to avoid a snowball effect. I'd rather just give you a minuscule to moderate amount of pain now than to let it all build up and then hit you with a hammer at the end of it, because I know it hurts less. I know for a fact that it hurts less to hear exactly what you don't want to hear in the moment than to finally come to terms with the fact that someone was aware that something like this can happen within, let's just say, 6 months. Someone is aware that in 6 months they're going to have to hit you with terrible news and they do nothing about it, and then they hit you with a massive snowball because it rolled out of control. If you felt the feeling, you felt the feeling to give someone your all in any aspect, just for it all to end in a moment. 3, 6, 12 months down the road, it's a terrible feeling and it hurts. And it only hurts more when you realize that the person was aware that that type of scenario could have happened before it even started. I'm an inconsistent person, and I do my best to tell people, and I do my best to make it known in my actions. Even though it's a terrible way to go about it, I do the same thing. I do things willingly or unknowingly to let people know I'm inconsistent at times. So unless you make it known that I need to break out of the cycle immediately, like if you tell me some terrible news, if I get a message and someone's like, hey, this is urgent, I need you, then I'll break out the cycle. But if there's not that sense of urgency, then I'll take my time and I'll be terrible with it, because the leniency is why I act so terribly. Essentially, I'll just let time pass and I'll do I won't be I won't be the person I strive to be, because I feel the wiggle room that I have for just not being that person, and I'll just dance in it happily until the world crashes down on me. Whatever that might mean, or whatever that might feel like. And then when it hits me, it'll suck. So I'll just keep people at length anyway, just to make sure that it's known, just like, hey, I'm gonna dance in this wiggle room. I want to make my problems apparent to you. So I think a lot of the people I end up talking to on a quote-unquote regular basis, which turns into semi-regular basis, I'll tell them straight up, I'm like, by the way, I'm inconsistent. I don't answer messages, text messages, DMs, whatever it might be. Sometimes I'll end up just leaving and I won't say a word, and I promise you it's not because of anything that you did. I'll just end up leaving anyway. And that's just what it is. I don't really want to speak on it in that at that time or in the future. And to be honest, I probably couldn't tell you a reason as to why I just decided to leave, but I'll just go at times, and it'll just be inconsistent. So please, by all means, like, I apologize wholeheartedly for the things that you might feel and the things that I've done, but this is just who I am for now. Important caveat, because I do believe I have the potential to change. Whoever I am today is not who I will be tomorrow, which is inconsistency in itself, but it's more so a statement on the fact that I, just like everyone, has the capacity to change day by day. And because I always have the capacity to change, that means I have the capacity to change into a better person every day. So for now, while I might do and say things that I am disgusted at, perhaps tomorrow I won't be that person. So I'll tell them, at the moment, I'm inconsistent, whatever it might be, whether it be just a random willingness to not answer, or an emotional willingness to not answer, or, hey, by the way, I'm drowning in work right now, in other personal commitments, so I might just be gone anyway. I make it known that you shouldn't expect a quick answer from me, unless it's made known that a quick answer is required, essentially. And I mean, due to my willingness to just ignore things, times maybe that even falls into the cracks, but I do my best. I do my best to limit the amount of times that these type of scenarios happen unknowingly. I'd rather look at your text and literally decide to hold off on responding because I have something else to focus on real fast, as opposed to just not see it at all. I see everything. I'm just bad at responding. It's inconsistent. It's not stable. And I'm going to go against a thing that I try to talk about a lot and try to talk against, which is self-diagnosis. I believe in using the terms to get closer to understanding what you deal with and how you feel and how your brain works and everything. But I don't agree with running out and just saying that's who you are until you get the proper testing and its proper diagnosis to say, this is who I am. If you have problems focusing, you can look into ADHD, but don't run around and say that you have it. That's essentially what I mean when I talk about mixed diagnosis. But I've been looking into bipolar disorder and also BPD, borderline personality disorder. Both are very in line with a lot of the things that I've been feeling lately and for a while, but I've been using it purely as a way to start researching a lot of the emotions that I have and trying to understand, can I take a holistic approach? I believe holistic works in this context. Is there anything I can do to try to change, fix, or just be aware about what's going on before I need to feel like I should resort towards medication or anything else? So I've been looking into bipolar disorder, and there's a lot of signs that are pointing towards it, both in just my family history and my family in general, and just the way that I act. And that would explain, and even also because I have friends who are diagnosed as bipolar, talking to them has given me a good sense that perhaps I've been looking in the right place lately, because my sudden and aggressive mood swings and my habit of falling into pits of immense anger as opposed to any other emotion. It's starting to make sense for me. I will never tell you until I get diagnosed that I am bipolar, but there's a lot of signs that point towards, at the very least, if you're not bipolar, there's a lot of signs and traits of bipolar people that can tell you some of the emotional and mental habits that you have, which means that, okay, I understand where I can look. Stepping away from bipolar for a second, for an example, I also mentioned that I was looking into BPD, borderline personality disorder. One of the things that is common in BPD is a concept in psychology called splitting. And splitting is basically seeing the world in a black and white perspective, if I recall the term properly, and I pray that I do. But splitting is seeing things in black and white. So it's an all or nothing perspective. So if something happens, you will only see it as the far left or the far right. You can't make sense of the space in between. And at least at times, it might take a while to get to this point. In the immediate moment, I end up splitting, at the very least. I end up just only seeing it in one way, whether it be permanently or for a while. That is a term in a psychological rabbit hole I've been going down studiously for a couple weeks, couple months, and I'm still trying to go down it more and just look around, because it's an interesting concept that I never knew the term of, so I can start to get more information. And as I look up at more information, it's just, okay, is this something I experience? And if so, okay, what's some more information about it, so I can get a better idea of is this something I deal with? And if so, what are some documents writing down their behaviors and studies about, do people get out of this type of feeling? If so, how do they get out of it, and what's the estimated time frame? Very, very hell-bent on self-improvement, especially in the last couple of years, because I feel so inconsistent, and the inconsistency makes me feel bad, a level of remorse for the people who I've had to deal with, quite frankly, my bullshit in the last couple of years. I know I've hurt a good amount of people, almost, quite frankly, everyone that I've dealt with and everyone that I know and talked to in the last couple of years, due to my inconsistent manner, whether it be they come in contact with my abrasive side immediately, or I win them over, quote unquote, with my nicer side, and then I end up saying or doing something that is quite rude and, quote unquote, out of character for me. I don't believe there's anyone that has talked to me for more than 2-3 months at any given point in the last 6-7 years who hasn't been hurt, if not slightly, by the way that I move. Even in the last year or so, I went from talking to some of my online friends daily to they wouldn't hear from me for weeks or not months, and they know that I'm doing things. They can see and find me in certain areas, but I just don't talk to them. I don't DM them. I don't check up on them. We don't play games together, and I'm worried about them, but something just doesn't let me actually do something with the way that I feel. So I have to change. I have to change, and I will change. I don't plan on being inconsistent forever. I just have to keep doing my research to figure out where am I lacking in certain areas, and how can I stop lacking in them. What does it take to manage my anger? What does it take to, after I start to manage my anger, what does it take to just be there for people the same, regardless of urgency or not, the same way I used to be when I was younger? What will stop me from feeling inconsistent?